Welcome back to Open Line tonight. We're taking a good hard look at these school board races for Metro Nashville Public Schools. Big election coming up Thursday. Hope you have plans to turn out and vote if you didn't get a chance to do it during early voting. Tonight we're looking at District 2. We have Joanne Brannon, who a longtime school board member, is retiring. 3 of the 5 candidates here with me tonight: Edward Arnold, Jesse Gentry, T.C. Weber. I want to mention again that Rachel Elrod was invited. She had initially accepted but declined later today. And Radir Anur, we have not heard from. So here we are. We're going to jump to the phone lines first. We have Karen on the line. Karen, thank you for being part of the show. What's your question?
We know what your backgrounds are, but for the last 2 or 3 years, what has been your involvement in the schools at all levels, from elementary to high school, actually being in the school at events, at school board meetings, council meetings, budget meetings, before you decided to run?
Okay.
How involved were you in the school? Great question.
She wants to get to the heart of it. So, Jesse, we're going to start with you.
Sure. Karen, I'll be honest with you, not as much as I would have liked to. My wife and I actually do not have children at this time. We are in the process of expanding our family, and at this time, when we started looking at our involvement with the schools, get involved with the PTAs and the different career days and other events, it wasn't as much as it could have been. We both have been starting law practices, and with my work with juveniles, at the end of the day, a lot of times I was leaving parents' homes or finishing my work with the kids in our community, but not necessarily in a school specifically related fashion. So I've worked a lot with the children in our community. I'm a volunteer with the Tennessee Promise program, so I've worked with the children over at Overton with that. I've volunteered a couple different career days, but to answer your question shortly, not as much as I would have liked to.
So you're jumping in right now. Okay, TC, how about you?
How much time do we have left?
We don't want to eat up all the time, so give me the Cliff Notes version.
The Cliff Notes version is I've been very involved. Through the blog, I've managed to reach out and been invited to tour many different schools. I'm in the high schools, both Overton, Croft, and Maplewood, 2 of those not in our district, through Project Lit. If you haven't been to a Project Lit book club, you need to go. That's a shameless plug and one that I think is well worth it. I've also, there was under Dr. Register, there was the Parent Advisory Committee. The Parent Advisory Committee was drawn from parents from each cluster. That got suspended when Dr. Joseph arrived. Last year, there were only 3 PACs that were active in the entire city. There was the Stratford PAC, there was the West End PAC, and there was the Overton PAC. I was the chairperson for the last 3 years of the Overton PAC, and we had tremendous, our last meeting, I think we had 40 people there. So we had tremendous amount of input there. I've gone to, for the last 4 years, every 2 weeks, I go to read to a kindergarten class at Tusculum Elementary School. I started when my kids were in kindergarten, and then they got to the higher grades, and with testing, like Eddie was talking about, taking more required time, there was less time to read, but I always had that opening with the kindergarten class, so I usually went with those. The last couple of years, it's been an emerging English class, emerging English learners class, so I sat with those kids, and it was amazing to watch them go from not speaking English in the beginning to writing thank you letters at the end. I've sat on the Gifted Education Council, and I was the only parent on the English Learners Council for schools 2 years ago.
Okay, very good. Edward?
With 3 children, I've been involved in different things they've done, soccer, plays, etc., and so forth like that. Been to a couple of PTO meetings. I've been to several of the school board meetings, but the one that's most important is one that happened on 9/11/2012. They still have it out there. You can see me out there. That's an issue that got me actually in the race. It's about pre-K and the funding. And so during the period of these last 4 years, these period of times, I periodically write letters about the funding, trying to get it changed. And where it is that what happened in our case is our youngest son went to pre-K one day. We had to pull him out. We had to pull him out because we got a bill from Metro Nashville Public Schools for $144 a week. Based upon our income, my wife and I were both working, we were to pay $576 a month for our son to attend Metro pre-K. That's because the way they're doing the funding is it's based upon your gross income, not your net or taxable. And there's actually 2 types of pre-K in Metro Nashville. First of all, if you're low income, you automatically qualify. for any spot that's left over for middle income, whatever, you have to meet the income requirements. You have to pay the money. Our two youngest children, they both went to pre-K free. My daughter went to Fall Hamilton. My son went to Norman Binkley. But when my third one went, they had initiated all of this. And so we were initially told it was $38 a week, and we got a bill for $144. So we had to pull them out. So that's been my main push since 2014. That's why I got in the race, is to try to change the structure. And as far as I understand, the board could do that. I think they have the authority or the policy to change how that's done, but it has to start at the state level and come down.
Okay, and I'm going to jump right on this because Bert, who is watching on Facebook, I do believe, and by the way, we are streaming online from NewsChannel5.com and also on Facebook, so thank you to all those tuning in. Bert was asking, when are they going to change the pre-K requirement so it's not income-based? Any of you all want to weigh in on this one? You have.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. I think we need to start looking at that. We need to look at expanding pre-K as well. When we look at what pre-K can provide, it allows not only for children to get a head start with getting into education, get into the culture of schools and get ready from an earlier age, it also allows more of our parents to start getting back into the workforce. So it helps us on two fronts there. You know, I think that it helps if we can free up some more money to make it not an income-based program, but I know a lot of that is to try to recoup some of those costs. You know, we have a very limited budget, so I think it's something that we should prioritize, because we should prioritize our children going to preschool. I think there's a major value not only to the children going, but to our city as a whole. And I think that we need to look at that not only from a, you know, well, does it help us recoup some money here? I mean, we really need to make this investment with our kids at an early age. So I think when we can start looking at removing those barriers to a high-quality preschool, I think we need to change a little bit what we're doing, because we look at some statistics that show us that the children who get that head start at pre-K, by third grade, they're matched up with their peers. So I think we need to not only be looking at ways to remove those barriers to get more children in pre-K, whether that's making it free or even a lower cost, we need to make sure that we're doing it in a high-quality fashion.
And Tizzy, I want you to weigh in on this too.
Well, I think this is one of those areas where the devil really falls into the details. You know, pre-K is one of those subjects everybody says more pre-K and everybody gets excited. But what does that exactly mean? It's an issue where the funding has to come from the state, okay? The state passed a number of years ago BEP 2.0 and then turned around and never funded it. They have never fully funded the budget they passed. So in order for us to expand pre-K, that has to be expanded. The problem is when the money comes in from the state, so does the accountability. And what does accountability look like in pre-K? I happen to personally believe in play as an important role in how children development. And if you watch closely, you can see we're starting to put what we call more rigor in the classroom. And that is actually shown throughout studies that can cause problems later in life if kids aren't, if the curricula isn't enough play derivative. In talking to the people here in the system, I think we have a good balance right now. But elections are important. This isn't the only one that's coming up. There's also a state election where we're going to elect a new governor. That's a question I would ask the new governor is, when are we going to start making pre-K, pre-K not relying on economic status? When are we going to expand that? And what are your plans? And if that's something you really want, which I think it's important as well,
It needs to stop at the state level.
Yep, it needs to start at the state level.
We do have to take a break, but I'm going to ask this question before we go, so just hang on, guys, there in the back real quick. I'm going to jump off Desiree here on Facebook. She's asking about your thoughts on the Reading Recovery Program, but I promised I would jump off that and ask this as well. Dr. Joseph has been criticized in recent months for his handling of the $7.5 million budget shortfall for the elimination of the Reading Recovery Program, and now for his handling of sexual harassment allegations. Do you support Dr. Joseph and his team? Who wants to jump in first?
I'll jump in first, because first of all, I think that's actually two questions that deserves a lot more time than what we're getting. The Reading Recovery he handled that as a political situation. Nobody's arguing that he has the right to select curriculum and programming, but what is he using instead of Reading Recovery? His plans to reposition those teachers. It's like me going up, if Mike Vrabel went out and held a press conference and said, you know what, our wide receivers are the best players on the team, and so I'm going to put them at middle linebacker, and we're going to be a great football team. Everybody would laugh him out of the room. It's the same with Reading Recovery. You know, when it comes to the support of Dr. Joseph, this is the thing that I find the most disconcerting. We spend, and I said this at the NOAA thing, we spend a whole lot of time discussing whether or not individual board members support Dr. Joseph or not, when the conversation should be on, do you support policy? And there's no doubt between the sexual misconduct, which as somebody who writes a blog on education has been on my radar for about 2 months, and as you read the 130 pages of documents that's on Phil Williams' Channel 5 story, I think it's clear to anybody who takes the time to read those, that was not handled properly. And nobody is taking accountability for it. So instead of focusing on whether we support Dr. Joseph or not, I think we need to ask, do the families support where he's going, and do families feel like they're getting the best policy for their kids? Do they feel like their needs are being addressed? And I'll be honest with you, I'll be perfectly frank, I spoke with, over the last 10 days, as you can tell, I've got the suntan to prove it, out in the hot pavement campaigning, I talked to probably 500 to 1,000 people. And I can tell you there were very, very, very few that said, I want to keep going where we're going. We're doing a great job. Let's keep it up.
Okay, Jesse, your turn.
I think the most important thing when we look at supporting Dr. Joseph or not supporting is we look at, is he meeting the goals that he's set out? And we look at that overall, we say, you know, well, our graduations have dropped. We've had some drop in our actual performance on our standardized testing. And I think it's important to make sure that that's the conversation. We have a lot of additional things that we discuss with whether or not we support him, and some things that he's done personally or how he's handled other situations. And I think that they're certainly valid conversations. But I do think our school board needs to make sure we're holding his feet to the fire on looking at these goals. If that's his job and that's his job performance, is to look at, are you meeting these goals that you've set out or that we've set out that we want you to
Do you think he's meeting the goals right now?
You know, I think that he's asked for more time for some of these goals, and I think that he's been very honest with showing the shortfalls in some of these goals. I do think we need to probably give a little bit more time, since we have recently looked at how we're changing the standards and how we're actually assessing. But I do think we're getting close to a crunch time, and I think, you know, anytime there's a change in leadership, you're going to see another drop back. So I think we need to evaluate both of those. But I think we can't be afraid of saying, you know, do we support him or not support him? No, we need to look at everything, look at all the quantitative data, look at what we're actually accomplishing, and have those honest conversations to say, look, we're not keeping up this end of our bargain right now.
Okay.
We need to figure out a way to do it.
Edward?
There was an article in Tennessee where I was misquoted as saying that I supported Dr. Joseph. That's not what I told them. In January this year, I attended what's called an Educator Voice Sessions. It was held at Tuscaloosa Elementary. A lot of teachers were there. I was there. A lot of people didn't know who I was. I was running the school board at that time. And I got an opportunity to talk to one teacher that had been teaching my children and other teachers. And at that time, they felt that Dr. Joseph was doing a very good job, and they thought he was addressing their concerns. Now, since then, all heck has broke loose with the budget. And people I've talked to, and even my personal thing, I think the budget was handled completely wrong. I think that the ultimate goal of education was like shifted somehow to the left or right or someplace. And this reading program was something very necessary in our schools, since we're so low on reading and math. And that should have been one of the first things that was funded completely full, but it wasn't. So, from my opinion, and from parents I've been talking to, they think the shift is going the wrong way.
Okay, thank you guys for answering that question. I know we have Kenny, Wayne, and Taylor on the phone. We're going to get to your calls as soon as we come back. Stay with us.